Well, hey, welcome back. Dave Dubeau here. Today we're going to be talking about what is a JV in real estate. So, are you curious about doing joint ventures in real estate? In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at what is a joint venture, what are the pros, what are the cons, what are the risks, and how to set yourself up and your joint venture partners for success. Stay tuned. So, what is a joint venture in real estate anyhow? Well, it's a pretty broad definition. It basically means anytime two or more people come together to share resources to do a real estate deal. So, it could look all sorts of different ways. It could be that one partner is bringing cash to the table, the other partner is bringing the deal. It could be that one partner is bringing land to the deal, the other partner is bringing the cash and the team to the deal. There's all sorts of different ways that you can set up a joint venture. But basically, it's when two or more parties come together for a kind of partnership to do a real estate deal. So what are the different kinds of joint ventures in real estate? Well, there's a few different kinds. One is equity, an equity joint venture, and that's typically the kind of joint venture you're probably going to be looking at. And that's where one party brings in the finances, perhaps the credit, the other party brings the deal to the table, and they join forces and they partner on that deal. Another kind of joint venture is a development joint venture. And again, that's where one party brings the property, they actually own the property, and the other party brings the money and the deal and the team to the table, and they join forces and they share on that particular deal. So what are the big benefits to doing a joint venture? From your point of view as an active real estate investor, you might be thinking, well, why do I want to do a joint venture? That means I'm going to have to share the profits with an investor partner. Well, yeah. However, you're going to be able to do so much more, so many more deals, so many more bigger deals than you could on your own by bringing on other people's money, that your share of the profits is going to be much, much larger than what you could ever do just by yourself. So yeah, you're going to have to share the profits, but you're also going to be sharing the risks. I mean, think about it. One of the reasons it's so beneficial to bring on an equity joint venture partner is because they only make money when the project's making money. If you're not making money, you're not coming out of pocket to pay your joint venture partner. They're sharing in all of the profit centers from the deal, but they're also sharing in the risks on that property. So a joint venture is not just a great way for you to scale, but it's also a great way for you to scale and share a bit of the risks. All right, one of the really important things you have to look at when you're doing a joint venture is to make sure that you've got a really solid joint venture agreement put together. Don't just grab one off the internet and hope for the best. You need to really make sure it's dialed in for you and your particular situation and your joint venture partner's needs as well. It's kind of like a prenup. It's kind of like an agreement before you're getting into that kind of a relationship, right? Because at the beginning, everything's good. Everything's sunshine and flowers. Everybody likes each other. But what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if you don't get along 3 or 4 years down the road? What happens if your joint venture partner wants to get out of the deal before it's completed? All of these things need to be taken into account, and the best way to do that is with a solid joint venture agreement. Get it done with a lawyer, have their lawyer check it out, make sure everybody is 100% clear on exactly what's going to happen and how. So what are some of the risks of doing joint ventures? Well, the big risk is that you have a falling out, right? That you get started with a deal, your joint venture partner brings in the capital, perhaps brings in their credit, and then you're going along with the deal, and for whatever reason, you guys decide that you don't like each other very much. Well, that could be a big, big challenge. It's kind of like a divorce, right? It can be very painful, it can be very expensive, it can be traumatizing for all partners involved, unless you've got that anticipated before. So that's again why we talked about the importance of having a good joint venture agreement. So what are some of the realities around this? Well, usually the problem happens because you don't have a good joint venture agreement up front. It's really interesting. I was interviewing a lady not too long ago on my podcast, and she was talking about the fact that she never ever wants to do a joint venture. I said, why? Because that's kind of my shtick is all about bringing on private capital and doing joint venture arrangements for growing a portfolio. And she said, no, I really don't want to do joint ventures because my brother-in-law did one and he had such a bad experience, and I saw what happened. I never want to have that happen to me as well. I said, okay, well, what happened? He said, well, my brother-in-law did a joint venture with his best friend. In fact, it was his best man at his wedding. And they joined forces, and the best friend, the best man, brought in the money and the credit, and they bought a duplex in Los Angeles. And everything was going good for a little while, but then they had a disagreement, they had a falling out, and the whole thing split up. And it got into litigation, got into lawyers, got into one person suing the other. It was an absolute disaster. But here's what happened. They went in on a spit and a handshake, like that, right? And that is the biggest recipe for having a disastrous joint venture relationship, right? Even if you're dealing with your best friend, your best man, you need to have a solid agreement up front. You have to have clear understanding of the roles and responsibility. What are you going to be doing? What are they going to be doing? What are they expecting from you? What are you expecting from them? You have to have that all dialed in ahead of time. If you just charge in and say, hey, let's do this together. I got the deal, you got the money, it's going to be great. No, it probably isn't. Okay? So here's my suggestion. This is exactly what I told this lady. I said, hey, if you ever want to do a joint venture, here's how to do it right. And this is a writer-downer. I don't care if you're doing a joint venture with your mom. I don't care if it's your spouse. I don't care if it's your adult child. I don't care if it's your best friend, your bridesmaid, whoever. Always, always, always do this. Treat it as if you're working with a stranger who is an accredited investor. So for example, if you were working with an accredited investor who didn't know you, that person would insist on having a solid joint venture agreement. They'd insist that the contracts were completely dialed in. They would insist that their lawyer look over that contract, right? So set that up even if you're dealing with your best friend. The other thing that an accredited investor would insist on is that you're giving regular reporting and regular meetings. So that's going to vary depending on who you're working with, but I would recommend that for the first year of the deal, that you're meeting with the joint venture partner on a quarterly basis, giving them a quarterly update on what's going on with the property. So very, very open communications. What's going well, what's not going so well. So be very open about communicating the good news and the not so good news, and do it on a regular basis. Next thing you want to do is regular reporting. Not just telling them what's going on, but actually providing them with written documentation. That's going to mean you're going to have to be a lot more organized. You're going to have your numbers dialed in. You're going to have your bookkeeping all dialed in. But that's going to make you a much better, much more professional real estate investor. It's a win for you as well. The other thing an accredited investor is going to insist on is regular payments, right? So if you're telling the person that you're going to be making monthly payments, cash flow share, what your rev share, or whatever that looks like, whatever your agreement is with your joint venture partner, make sure you do it. And if you can't do it, make sure you got very open communication about why not. There's a vacancy this month, or we had to do some renovations on the property, whatever it is, but make sure that you are doing what you said you're going to do in the first place. And if you can't, make sure you've got that kind of communication. So if you do this, if you treat your joint venture partners as if you're working with a professional investor and you do everything like that, then you're setting yourself up for success instead of failure. That's the best advice I can give you. That's the advice I gave that lady. It kind of opened her mind a little bit about the idea, because there's only so much you can do on your own, and joint ventures are the best way to grow your portfolio, to scale your portfolio, to do more deals, and or get into bigger, better deals as well. So if you're looking to bring on joint venture partners, I've got just the ticket for you. It's my book, The Money Partner Formula. Link in the description below, or go to investorattractionbook.com. This is the perfect, proven way for you to attract joint venture partners to you instead of having to do all that salesy stuff nobody else wants to do, right? Nobody wants to dial for dollars. Nobody wants to network and schmooze endlessly to try and raise capital. Plus, it doesn't work very well. We've got a proven method here that works like gangbusters. It's going to help you raise your first 6 figures in a matter of weeks, and even 7 figures in a matter of months with joint venture partners. So again, Investor Attraction Book. The price is right. It's free.